Alrighty, guys, so now that I am recording, happy Thursday. Hope everybody is doing absolutely fantastic. I hope you've had a great weekend, or week, not end, week. And more importantly, you are ready for the weekend. So, which I'm going to speak about in a matter of moments, but the goal for tonight, so I gotta just dive right into this and use my time oh so wisely. So let's see how a new strategy works tonight. The goal is we're finishing Unit 2. I gotta finish Unit 2. And as well, to that end, I like this expression. Working hard for something you don't care about is stress. I know it. You know it. But working hard for something you love, like this, is passion. Remember that as you're about to, fingers crossed, finish this unit and go into a weekend rich with practice tests. Just remember, because sometimes we need the reminder of all of that passion, all of that drive, why we're here, what that end goal is going to look like. Now, speaking of end goal, makes me think of touchdown, makes me think of Super Bowl. And I got to tell you guys, sorry, but on a personal note, they announced today who's going to be halftime. Yeah, amazing. Just saying. Jennifer Lopez and Shakira. Okay, comment. I asked you to remind me. Yes, thank you. I might need it, I might not, but thank you. We'll see how I can kind of ad-lib that tonight the way I thought I could in the last session. I do remember, I just now can't remember what role I was on, but thank you. Okay, so a couple of very, very important announcements. Not very, didn't warrant two, but anyhow, a couple of announcements. Friendly reminder. Our next tutorial, which I think I mentioned last time, will be held again on Friday, October the 4th, so we're about a week out. If I'm doing my math correctly, at 1 o'clock Eastern time. This is going to be a full 60, possibly maybe a little bit longer, because in typical Jen fashion, I talk a lot, but a good hour boot camp of Unit 1. We're going to bring back a lot of lessons from the past. The goal today is we are finishing Unit 2. It is going to be heavy. So I think I always say that. Brace yourself. There's some, I think, confusing content, but I want to iron it out so it's not confusing. So I'm going to give it the time that it deserves. The goal, please, for this weekend, do your Unit 2 practice tests. Even if we're just a little bit of a sliver shy, you're equipped to take them. So this weekend, let that be your goal. And mark your calendars, because we are, before you know it, in October, and we are, before you know it, approaching Doomsday. No, October 18th is the last day that we all, whomever is, taking the exam, can apply and save $75, no matter which exam. Okay, so just mark your calendars. FYI, for more information, of course, you can always head on over to the Certifying Institute's website. I will mention it again and again, and I will be posting it not only to the Hive, but as well to our social media channels and so forth. You scheduled your SHRM exam and PHR exam. Oh my God, that is so amazing and yet nerve-wracking. It's like getting engaged and then setting the wedding date, like, oh my, that's huge. Okay, and you're the second classmate actually to share that today. So good luck, good luck, good luck. At least now you have that date. Okay, you can work backwards. Congrats on that first massive step. Alrighty, guys. Oh, comment is coming in. You sent me an email. Oh dear, sorry. I've been busy with my nose developing courses in the Hive for future classes. I'm so sorry. Not being able to access practice exams. Oh, I think that just came in later this evening, right? Yeah, I think I just saw that about half an hour ago. I will absolutely give you a hand with that. Again, if you don't mind, I'm just going to put that on the back burner for now, and then we will definitely, get that resolved for you. Thank you. Okay, guys. So please flip over to page 90 if you are not there. My pleasure. If you're not there already, and let's put section 4, that being recruitment, to bed. So here we go. We spoke about ways to ways to determine our recruitment needs and ways as well to uphold our recruitment objectives. And that's where we really left off, if I may, speaking about yield ratios. Okay, so we get our metrics. But we also want to make sure that whom we hire is of quality. I'm sure we've all been there. And if we haven't, I'm sure we will be there. That being, sometimes they are on point choices as to who we hire, who we promote, who we transfer, what have you. Sometimes it may take a little bit of time to realize, yowza, maybe that wasn't the best fit. people change, needs change, be that as it may. But the quality of hire, no doubt about it, is a metric. And of course, we always like these quantitative metrics because then we say, well, the numbers don't lie, so it's a very reliable, one might argue, evaluation system, really to evaluate the effectiveness of the company's hiring process. Really, what we want to do through all of these many different possible ways to do it, and that's why you have this healthy list, you want to assess the quality of the company's hire based on a lot of different evaluation criteria. And it basically tells us, do we perhaps need to modify some of our processes? Now, truth be told, as we are moments away from our next section, that being on selection, we're actually going to be able to sharpen this up just a little bit. Another classmate is saying, you scheduled your date. Woo, again, exciting, and yet nerve-wracking all at the same time. So we can, if I may, source and recruit, and truthfully select as well, internally as well as externally. And again, always tap into maybe any experience you have. Maybe you have been an internal referral. Maybe you have been part of that internal lateral move, whatever the case may be. And I think, just like anything else, there's pros and cons. So I think it's worth, maybe just like inner monologue, kind of taking out the scales of justice, if I may, and weighing the advantages or disadvantages to either approach. Now you can see we have a longer list on the right when we consider all the many different avenues or vehicles to recruit externally, fewer internally. But here's one thing to know, just as best practice. And so this is a, air quote, industry standard, so you want to know that going into the exam, is that when you are posting for jobs within, and sometimes that is just kind of like a check mark off of the technicality list, because you need to post it within for a good week is best practice before you go outside, and maybe going outside is ultimately the goal, but be that as it may, best practice is post jobs internally for at least a week before maybe you determine that internally you do not have options, and therefore you will go external. You do always want to include, in this case, a job specification at bare minimum. Possibly more information is ideal, but a job spec for sure, because internally we all speak, if you will, the same internal lingo, right? It's part of the culture. And if there's any eligibility rules. I know my experience, here's one job I haven't told you I've done yet, but some time ago, actually, just before I joined HR.com, so maybe about, 9, 10 years ago, I was actually designing and delivering training for the provincial government. And that's where they actually had Ontario Public Service competitions. So those were like internal job postings. So sounds pretty bad, but everybody was internally competing against one another, kind of like a job bid. Now, of course, in going the route external, which is also quite common, here's one thing to remind yourselves. And we spoke about this when we talked about employment branding. We've spoken about this as well, about finding a good chemistry and a good fit. And not to mention in talking about projecting that imagery and that culture. Truthfully, the route that a company chooses to promote themselves through and promote as well any vacancy says a lot about the company. It just speaks volumes about the brand, the culture, and frankly, who that organization is seeking. And now we wrap up this section. I told you that was going to be really, really easy breezy, lemon squeezy. A policy of promoting people from within the company does all except which? It creates greater motivation. It increases satisfaction, stimulates greater company loyalty. It contributes greater insight and fresh ideas. When you promote somebody from within, it's going to do 3 of these things. You tell me which one it does not do. Okay, super. Okay, amazing. So we see that correction. Super. Okay. A lot of responses came in. No, I didn't say that. I don't want to answer that just yet. Give me a second. Okay, let's, I guess, take up the answer. Going once, going twice, 3 times. The correct answer is D. It does not contribute greater insight and fresh ideas. So if anybody had overheard me say, oh, great for the correction, not that anyone could know, but I was speaking to, I guess, another classmate who I saw change their answer. That person will know who they are. But anyhow, the reason why D is correct, meaning that when you promote from within, it does not contribute greater insight and fresh ideas, is because, if I may, you're not getting fresh blood from outside, who perhaps is bringing, if you will, a different insight from perhaps a different thread of experiences. When we are all in our own fishbowl, we tend to, I guess, kind of, get used to the walls around us. And it's sometimes really hard to, push the envelope and think outside the box. And that's why continuing training and education is just so important. It's not bad, I guess, sometimes to go out into the world and get that breath of fresh air, because yes, you bring in a totally different set, if you will, of organizational intellect. Okay. Oh, yeah, it definitely, and I fall into that trap as well, comes, I was not down to, but you definitely want to ask yourself, or maybe almost reword or reread or reorganize, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, the question. I have found in my experience, both that of my own and not to mention that of, helping so many people prepare for the exams in all these years, a lot of people may not actually grip what the question's really asking them. And then when they reapproach it, and sometimes reapproach it backwards, they're like, oh my God, are you kidding? Of course I know my stuff. Of course I know this. I know it upside down, 8 days a week. It's just sometimes, gripping the question. And they will definitely trick you. There's no doubt about it. So when in doubt, it's okay to paraphrase it or reword it if need be. Okay, I'm being asked, if I was taking the exam, how would you read the question? Okay, so you mean this particular question? So, okay. What I would recommend is read the question as is. A policy, irrelevant, promoting people from within. Stop, get a visual. Maybe have you been promoted within? Think about that. If not, what if you were promoted tomorrow within? And think about maybe that position you're aspiring for. Just grip what that feeling, literally feeling in your belly feels like. So this way you get the feeling and you've got the visual in your mind. Okay, great. Now you're being asked, from promoting people from within, does all of the following except? So you can basically, and this is how I read it, if I were promoted from within, oh, yay for me. And I can't wait to see that announcement and everyone say, hey, Jen, good job, and you deserve it, and we can only dream. It will do 3 of these things. I'm looking for the one it's not going to do. And literally, this is me just talking to myself, mind you, out loud, but I would say this inside my head so that I can understand what that question is asking. Yeah, so don't be afraid to take it apart. Don't rewrite the question, because then you take the chance of completely looking for something that isn't there. But it's okay if you just have to ingest it or digest it a different way. And in fact, I highly recommend it, because again, if you don't know what the question is asking you, how can you answer it? Or at least answer it correctly. Oh, my pleasure. Okay, guys, so we talked about recruitment. Now let's talk about selection. This is going to take us the next 50 pages, 45-ish, and it's going to end the unit. So we've got literally to the minute, an hour to do this. Let's kill it. What we are going to do, and I'm going to do this nice and slow, but we are going to bring back reliability and validity. Just going to allow a moment of silence. I just want you to take a moment, please, and refresh your memory when we talked about reliability and validity in Unit 1. Okay, time's up. So I can't handle silence. I always perceive it as rude. So like rude on my part, that is. So we will come back to that, but we're going to put a different twist on it. It's going to be a little bit more complicated, but we're going to break it down. That'll be the hardest part of all of this. Once we can get through that, phew, smooth sailing. We'll talk about interviews. We'll talk about pre-employment tests. Then we'll talk about evaluating our selection procedures. And now, or at that point then, we're going to be like, great, I know how to bring on qualified people. Okay, so when it comes to selection, of course, we're putting a lot of time and a lot of money into the process. Nobody wants to spend time or money without having positive results. We don't want to make poor hiring decisions. Sometimes we don't know it till after the fact. Fine, do a stop, start, continue assessment. The idea is when you learn of that, okay, poor decision, that mistake, if you will, learn from it. Everything has a cost. There's a lot of reasons why people turn over, but higher turnover is experienced, unfortunately, within, typically, reports will show us, within the first 6 weeks of employment. So if you can pass those first 6 weeks, better even yet, maybe that probationary period, which we can see push maybe 12 weeks sometimes, oof, there's no guarantees in life, but people start to, get loyal, or they become, what's the word I'm looking for? Embedded. You have to have reliability to have validity, right? Correct. Yeah, we're going to come to that. So I ask you this. Let's take a look at this first principle. I'm really, really curious. Do you agree or disagree with the statement at point number 1? Understanding past behavior is the best predictor for future behavior. Agree or disagree, or frankly, you're undecided? You're 50-50, okay? Me too. Okay, we have a classmate who agrees, another one who agrees. We have someone saying, not always. I disagree, and agree. People change. I like that. You read my mind. Okay. So as more and more responses come in, and this is fantastic, and look, we're just getting food out there, food for thought, that is. Truth is, as I said, even when we were talking about forecasting, we rely on history to help us understand what quite possibly could happen in the future, because the truth is we don't have a glass ball. So yes, we will come to the conclusion that, yeah, past behavior tells me what I can expect from you. Now, sure, we're all capable of change. If our past behavior served consequences that were less than desirable, then yeah, we're probably going to change things up, I would like to say. Okay, so maybe these behavioral-based interviews that we're all so reliant on, maybe they're not so reliable. But then what do we have to go on? I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe, Bobby, maybe not, I don't know. Are we not allowed to right our wrongs? That's a hard one, yeah. Okay, so we'll see. I don't know. I think indefinitely the jury just might be out on that in terms of point number 1. But to point number 2, which I think is less than debatable, we do definitely want to collect as much reliable and valid data as we possibly can. And that's what we're really going to speak about. So with no further ado, let's get a little bit closer to doing just that. What you see before you, and 2 you have on page 106, I just want to please add a disclaimer, that being in the orangey kind of italics that you see towards the left-hand side. This process that you see before you is, if I may, industry standard typical. This is what the certifying institutes, HRCI and SHRM alike, and there are larger accrediting bodies, the NCCA and I think it's the University of Nebraska, what have you. This is what they say is typical. No doubt that when you read this and or you are seeing this now, you're thinking, no, and I would agree with you. This isn't how I do it. This may not be how you do it. Do you need to memorize this and recognize, oh, the 4th step is employment testing? Absolutely not. The idea here is to, yes, see what the industry standard is in terms of what the selection process looks like. So it's really sourcing, recruiting, selecting from top to bottom, you progress. But the key message here is leave the most expensive steps in the process for the end when you have fewer candidates. I'm the first person to admit that this diagram doesn't necessarily illustrate that message. That's what the message is. You do not want to put, let's say, all 100 candidates that you initially received resumes for through some of the very costly pre-employment tests. Save that for the end when you have fewer contenders. What is an application blank? It's just that. It's an application. So where somebody may go online, old world, we used to do it, by hand, and we would just fill out an application. So our personal information, name, address, employment experience, as well as educational experience. Yeah, and now they're pretty much done online. It's kind of like a thing of the past, at least to the best of my knowledge. Okay. Of course, we're going to collect all of this information, and we want to pump it into our fantastic technology. So we have an ATS, our application tracking system. If it's really, really well, I would say integrated, we're going to find this, of course, in our HRIS or HRMS, HCS, whichever technology we have and however we want to label it in terms of course, with those acronyms. But be that as it may, maintaining an ATS is really, really key so that this way we understand who has applied, what status are they in at what, point in the process, and maybe, just maybe, we might need to, recall them if they should still be interested or available. It's also very key. Take a look, please, at the very last bullet on this list. I'm not going to go through everything because I think it speaks for itself, but should we need, for any reason, to generate reports, be it, for example, allegations of discrimination, be it, again, affirmative action plans, whatever the case may be, then again, having such a sophisticated, integrated technology to be able to generate these reports is very, very helpful. So another benefit, even just, if you will, for due diligence. Reliability. Reliability, this is blast from the past, from the end of Unit 1, refers to the consistency of a measure. Also refers to the repeatability. So think again, I think I gave you the example, I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty repetitive, of what it's like, for example, when you step on a scale and you weigh yourself. You hope that day after day, week after week, month after month, you get the exact same measure. Okay, plus or minus a pound here or there. We're coming up on holiday season, like, come on. But it's nothing extreme. One day you're not 120 and the next you're like 260. It's nothing extreme. So we are looking for that consistency. Take your practice tests as an example. You took your Unit 1 practice tests. Well, now that you're almost finished Unit 2, I also advised you, go back and take a Unit 1 again. Let's see that your performance in Unit 1, now that you have a lot of new learning, is consistent. There are a number of different things, however, when it comes to the recruiting world, let's go back into that may cause some unreliability. Sometimes the tool, the instrument that you're using to select a candidate is ambiguous or it is unclear. So let's say, for example, you give all, 5 remaining contending candidates the same pre-employment test. But how to use the test, when to do the test, maybe what system, operating system you need, to do the test, may be unclear. So some people may not really be sure what to do. If, for example, the test is, demonstrate to me your ability to deliver an online course. Okay, but you didn't tell me how. Do you want it in PowerPoint? Do you want it recorded? Do you want me just to share your slides? Do you want me just to prepare the frames? So that may be unclear. So you're not going to get consistent, if you will, work or output from each of those contenders. How can you compare them against each other then? Okay, well, sometimes the person who is using that selection instrument or that tool may not really actually know how to use it. And that's what we spoke about in our last session, the term intra-rater. So imagine, for example, I say to candidates, and I do, I say to candidates who have applied for jobs with me, I say, great, fantastic. I would love for you, please, to go and prepare a 2-minute presentation in PowerPoint. Record, please, yourself into PowerPoint. Send me the file on the topic X. So I want to see you design it. I want to hear your knowledge of it. And I want to see as well that you can use this particular software. Well, if that person doesn't know how to use PowerPoint or perhaps the recording feature, whereas perhaps another candidate does, got a little bit of a problem here. And then as well, last but not least, sometimes the behavior that we may be observing is unstable. So that may not be reliable. And I'm going to give you a real life example. When I had first finished my master's, I was so excited. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go into the real world and get a big girl job. You know, I was growing up from the world of retail and standing on my feet and what have you. I was so excited. And I had applied, you can imagine, to a cajillion places. And I finally, I remembered it was July. And I thought, oh, this is a good month. It's my birthday month. I can just feel it. The stars are aligned for me. I received interest to my resume from one of the really big 4 banks in our metropolitan city. So I was like, oh my God, this is my time. They called my number. Well, wouldn't you know, right? Because doesn't this always happen? Like Murphy's Law just always works against you. Wouldn't you know that the day before, and certainly the day of my interview, I came down with probably the world's worst cold or flu in July. Now here, I had conducted a pre-screen phone call, and it went really well. My resume, I guess, was good. Anything else leading up to this was good. And then I go in for an interview. Now, I was debating with myself, do I call them and ask to reschedule and explain, well, I'm really under the weather and I don't think I'll be able to perform very well? Or do I show them, oh, you know, I can power through anything and, you know, I can still shine. So basically, you know, I'm very reliable to that respect. I will show up. I chose the latter. My performance, i.e. my behavior, was really not a reflection of myself. It was an unstable phenomenon. I was, but like drugged up on like probably every, you know, antihistamine or I don't know what medicine, and I was feeling very drowsy and lethargic. And I think I had a fever, I don't remember, but this was not a good representation of my real self. So I'm sure you can imagine, didn't get the job. Would I have otherwise? I don't know, but I'll never know. But it was not, if you will, consistent with whatever image that I had already sold about myself. So all of these things together may drive actually a lack of reliability. Okay, sometimes we have to say, okay, you have to give somebody a break. Okay, maybe so, but it's still things to take into consideration. Does everybody feel comfortable? And I just want to, you know, pick your brains. I don't want to make the wrong assumption. Do you feel comfortable and have a really good handle on really what reliability means? About the consistency and the repeatability, how I have been mentioning all this? Anybody? So I'm being asked, what about the benefit of the doubt? You can, but the truth is that the reason why we ask people to audition, so to speak, is so we can get a taste of what we're basically going to get if we buy, you know, their services. And that's exactly what we're doing. And we're going to talk about that actually in about 2 slides from now. So we can give people the benefit of the doubt, but when does it stop? And that's why there are things as interviews and pre-employment tests. So sure, sometimes you just have a good judgment call. I did not get it in my case. That's why you interview. Okay, so everybody, you have a good understanding of reliability? Perfect. Let's now take a look at operational definitions. Now, I don't know about you, but I have no idea what that means. So I break it down a little bit more, and I try to understand. Operational definitions, in other words, are testing procedures. How do we basically put something to the test before we actually hold somebody accountable to it? So take, for example, maybe you are going to cook, I don't know, your special pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving. Maybe you're going to first bake it before you serve it to your family and friends. You want to do like a little bit of a trial run and make sure, okay, it's good. I need more of this, I need less of that. Kind of like what this is. It's a trial run. Testing procedures. There's 4 different ways that we can test reliability before we start to rely on the results. So to make sure that it works, there is first and foremost the test-retest approach. Imagine this, okay? Actually, no, you don't need to imagine. Kind of, yes. So imagine this. Or sorry, I was saying you don't need to imagine. I want you to take your practice tests as an example. I'm going to use, let's say, your Unit 1, Version A practice test. Imagine you got 82% on Unit 1, Version A. You took the test. And then you take the exact same test again, hence to retest. Maybe you wait a little bit of time. I don't know what's good, a week, 2 weeks, a month, what have you. And you take Unit 1, Version A, again, and maybe you get 83%. The test did not change, and as you know, the questions did not either. The individual or individuals, in my fictitious scenario, does not change. So all elements remain the same. The only difference is the time between the first and the second or any subsequent attempt. When we see, like stepping on the scale, consistency in the results, then we will say, okay, great. It is reliable. And that's why, let me just kind of send you a message within the lesson. That's why I stress, please go back in time and take tests, practice tests that you have already taken. You want to always be getting a consistent measure. And if not, okay, that's fine. Let's work to fill in those holes. Now, in the world of recruiting or selecting, sure, we may have people, I certainly have been put through this before, we may have candidates who take the same pre-employment test a second time, seeking reliability. I certainly did this in an honesty and integrity test. Does that sit well with everybody before I guess I erase this and I move on? Any questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, super. Okie dokie. Great, I'm going to erase this, going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay. Another way to seek reliability is through alternate forms. In other words, other ways. Think of it and think of all the different ways that you can commute. You can get from destination A to destination B. You can drive, you can walk, you could take a bike, you could maybe take a train, you could take a plane. Those are all different alternate forms of transportation. In the recruiting world, we rely on many alternate forms to determine one's candidacy. So imagine, for example, we collect somebody's resume. We collect as well an application, which is really just the company's legally owned document of the version of the resume. We then do a pre-screen call. Then we do an interview. Often maybe even a second interview, and so forth and so forth. These are all alternate forms to find out if that person is qualified and is a good fit for the job. And what we're seeking out is reliability. I want to know that what I learned in the resume, I discovered as well in the application. That this too was the song that they sang in the pre-screen, further elaborated in the interview, and possibly repeated again in the second interview. A lot of candidates are put through, I would say, the motions just to find out the same thing over and over again. We're really just seeking out reliability. So, just for fun though, let me give you another example, make this, full circle to you. Let's say in this course, for example, you have your practice tests. And let's say you average, I'm going to come up with a number, 86% for Unit 1 on the practice tests. Those are multiple choice tests. That's one form. Imagine I had asked you to submit all of your answers for all of those end of section questions, which are short answer questions, and I were to measure them. And I were to score you, a 71%. Again, it would be Unit 1, so the same dimension, so it's consistent in that way, but based on the measurables, we have a massive gap. So we don't have reliability. And the argument here would be, if you really know your stuff, you should be able to answer any question in any form. So alternate forms, that's what that means. And kind of like on your exams, not SHRM goers, but HRCI goers, you will have alternate types of questions. You will have multiple choice, you will have fill in the blank. Two different types of questions, still testing your knowledge. If you've got it, you've got it. Does that sit well with everybody? Questions, thoughts, comments? SHRM will only have multiple choice. Okay, super. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. I don't see any questions coming in. Okay. Let's talk about split halves. Your practice tests, just version A and version B, okay? Version A is 50 questions. Version B is 50 questions. Even before my day, any one unit test, let's say Unit 1, there was only one test, and it was only 100 questions. Back in the day, again, it was before my day, there was only one way to measure one's performance and knowledge, and that was just in a test. But then it was realized, you know what? We don't know if one's performance is consistent other than from multiple attempts. So why don't we take that test and split it in half? That's why you have a version A and B. So if you, let's say, get 81% on A, and you get, an 83% on B, that's consistent. It would be alarming if it was, again, let's say 81% and 42%. Whoa. I'm being asked, why is there a version C? Version C is scenario-based questions. That was a new addition, actually, just introduced to us last year. So think of it as well, let me just erase this. Think of it as well as, for example, interviews. I've always wondered, why do they invite me to multiple interviews? Why is there a first interview and then a second interview? Please, just have me there for 4 hours. I want to pay for parking once. Like, let's just kind of rip off the Band-Aid. Why do you keep, prolonging this? I'd rather get my wisdom teeth taken out again. That's because rather than doing one big, huge lump sum interview and inviting everybody in that needs to be it HR, line manager, executive, what have you, they're seeking consistency. And that's why they divide, really, the interviews. Does that sit well with everybody? Everybody okay? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Then one more. We've already discussed this, so if you're feeling good about everything, done. Now we have inter-rater reliability. Now, just for fun, I don't think you need to know this, but just for fun, This is also known as conspect. I hope I'm typing this correctly. Conspect reliability. In any event, what this is basically saying is if you have multiple observers, we want consistency between all of these, or between all of these observers. So when you have, let's say, for example, a panel interview, and you have the HR manager, and you have the line manager, and maybe you have, I don't know, the VP in a panel. If the HR manager says, yep, hire the person, the line manager says, I'm indifferent, I don't know, and the VP says, do not put that person on my payroll. Well, what do? That means we don't have reliability between the three of these. Even if it was 2 against 1, we need a full consensus. Think about juries. How in the world do they possibly, deliberate to come to be on the same page? In this case, what you want to do, especially when it comes to panel interviews, for example, because you want to have reliability, the idea is you want to craft together, of course, a very, very, very tight rubric of evaluation for that candidate, which matches the job description and job specification. And of course, too, it is those documents of which the interview questions are based off of. That's going to help really streamline, if you will, the key takeaways that each of these interviewers or observers have. So this way they can come to a place of a consensus and seek out that reliability. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question. Why does version C only have 20 questions? Because they're scenario-based questions. So they're fewer and fewer thus far with the new injection of the scenario-based questions of both SHRM and HRCI haven't been validated. So we hope that that inventory will grow, but these are really just new, not even 12 months under their belt. And that's why there's so few of them. Okay. How does everybody feel about that? No, not about the questions. I mean about inter-rater reliability and like the panel interview. How does everybody feel, I guess, about these testing procedures in seeking out reliability? Because here, you can say I'm putting all my faith in my sourcing, my recruiting, and my selecting process. Am I even getting reliable output? Okay, fantastic. Goody good, 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 good. Okay, so then with that note, I ask you, when 2 forms of the same test are given to job applicants to test for reliability, what is this known as? Now, I'm not going to read out the answers. When 2 forms, 2 types of the same test, and I'll be honest with you, you don't need to read the rest. Okay. Well then, you got me. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Going once? Going twice? 3 times? Nailed it. No other group in all of my years, or at least the last couple of months that I can remember, has all consistently, hey, look at that, consistently answered D. So that's fantastic. I usually get people divided between B and D. Beautiful. Unless, of course, I missed a heartbeat, in which case I'm sorry. The correct answer is D. The giveaway, which I think you guys got, in case I missed a heartbeat, is 2 forms. Same test. We just basically did it in 2 different ways. Okay, fantastic. That's an amazing example of reading the question. You have the knowledge, it's just breaking down the question. Okay, validity. Validity, just a friendly reminder. I find this confusing, so I want to go slow. You tell me if I'm making the wrong assumption, though. Validity is all about an instrument, a measure, a tool, doing what it's supposed to do. I can tell you over and over and over and over and over again that 1 + 1 is 3. when you hear the same message with so much conviction, you will believe it, I'm sure, in time. But I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, which is give you accurate information. So, as our classmate earlier said, you can have something that is reliable. It may not be valid. But if something is valid, yes, it is reliable. So in this case, when we're talking about validity, and we're saying, hey, my recruiting process, finding me the best, absolute, amazing candidate that is going to do the job as I need it done and is aligned with our company culture and values and mission and vision and, oh my God, just perfect. If I'm relying on my process to do what it's supposed to do, I need to make sure that there is a positive correlation between the predictor variable and the criterion variable. If I don't have a positive correlation, it is not valid. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. This is usually where I get questions. So let me actually anticipate, because history tends to repeat itself. Let me anticipate. So let me ask you guys. When you read and you hear predictor variable and criterion variable, do you know what these are? And the best way to answer this, please, can you turn around and explain it to my 10-year-old son? Sure, Jessica, 1 second. Can you guys define, describe, explain a predictor variable and a criteria variable? Good. I didn't think so. I can't either. No, I can, but I didn't used to be able to. So I would expect this. So I was able to anticipate this. So let me just go back and answer a question. I'm being asked, can you say that whole reliable but not valid and not reliable again? Absolutely. I can try to type this as I say it, so this way you can also kind of like see it. Where is my keyboard? Sorry. Okay. You can have something that is reliable but not valid. If it's valid, it is reliable. Okay, so think about, for example, again, the scale. Day after day, you can weigh the same thing. But if the scale is not calibrated, then while you're getting a reliable, consistent message, the scale may not be calibrated. So the scale's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's not valid. Because what it's supposed to do is give you an accurate, valid read. But if you are getting an accurate, valid read, then yes, it is reliable. Exactly. Just like the clock. Take a look at the last message that came in. Precisely. I'm going to leave this up here, but I do want to pick your brains. Let's go back, though, and let's discuss, please, predictor variables, also known as predictor data. Data is stuff that you collect. It's information. Now focus on the word to predict. It's right here in the language. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. It's not rhetorical. I really need you to contribute, please, if you feel comfortable. In a recruiting capacity, what information, in no particular order, would you collect about a candidate, about an applicant, so that you can predict if they would do a good job? Perfect, thank you. So you need their experience. How do you get the experience? How do you find out about a candidate, their experience? Beautiful. A resume, certifications. Okay, so their personality. So I'm going to say we discover this through an interview. References, absolutely. We want to know about their education. So maybe we get that also from an application. Maybe we ask for some, if you will, transcripts, if I may, of like maybe, their grades. Okay. Okay, verification credentials, absolutely. But what documents or what processes are we putting these people through? Absolutely, we might ask for a credit report. So I'm actually going to put credit report, blend it together with criminal background check. I'm going to put it towards pre-employment tests of any kind. Fantastic, including medical tests, drug tests, interviews. Absolutely. Okay, we're on the roll. So this is all the information that we collect to predict if the candidate actually would be a good fit. Everything it is that we are going to consider to determine their fit. Amazing. And I'm sure this is a short list. It's all the stuff we do before we offer them the job. Well, the truth is we collected all this information so that really, hopefully, fingers crossed, there shouldn't be any surprises when they have the job. So speaking of which, let's talk about having the job. When somebody has a job, they are working, and let's say you evaluate their performance. I bet you have a whole list of criteria that you're going to evaluate their performance on. So in the word criterion, you can see I've got my little pen ready to go. I'm going to drop the N for fun. I'm going to put a stem on the O, and now we have the word criteria. So what criteria would you or do you evaluate when somebody's on the job? What do you guys take a look at? I'll go first. Okay, metrics, sure. Can you get a little bit more precise? Perfect, thank you. Their productivity, perfect. Okay, so overall performance, if I may, and of course any way that that is measured. Their success, so maybe success might be by output, such as sales. Maybe, if you will, literal, like physical, maybe they're working on an assembly line and they produced X number of widgets, okay? Accuracy, for sure, if that is definitely, essential. Safety. Oh my God, love it. Time and attendance. What about, if you will, interpersonal relations? So such as maybe like their teamsmanship, their attitude, all these things. Fantastic. Yeah, return on investment in terms of, how they contribute, if you will, to the bottom line of the organization. We talked about all those HR accounting measures and unit one. Amazing. Good, good, good. So basically, what validity is saying is, if I'm putting a candidate, let me use Amelia. Sorry, your name is the last one that appears, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to pick on you. I'm putting Amelia through the whole recruiting and selecting process. And you know what? Fell in love. I was sold on the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, the behaviors, past performance, anticipated future performance, you name it, complete package, big red bow, sign up. Do an employee negotiation contract. Amazing, amazing. You're hired. And on the job, Amelia performs exactly the way in which she said during the recruiting and selecting process that she could. She didn't undersell or oversell, right on point. So whatever process I put Amelia, the candidate, through is exactly to perfection. Because I got exactly what I was looking for and exactly what I was sold on. So I have a positive correlation. Now let's change the story. Let's say Amelia totally oversold herself and said, I could sell $50,000 worth of pencils a month. I'm going to be the best sales rep you've ever seen. What are you talking about? I'll blow everybody out of the water. I can do this, I can do that. References all lined up perfectly. Come on, a reference says whatever we ask them to say. So all the predictor data that we collected made us think, oh my God, this is like the best candidate in the world. Jackpot. Then on the job, Amelia just can't do these things. She's dragging her feet, hasn't sold a dollar. Maybe we didn't ask the right questions. Maybe we didn't do the right pre-employment tests. Maybe this, maybe that. But what I know is something, there's a disconnect. Because what we were sold on and what we got, we have a negative correlation. So we might come to the conclusion that our sourcing and recruiting, our recruitment and selection process, there's a disconnect. It didn't do what it was supposed to do. Because what it was supposed to do was find these lies. Have truths. Sorry, Amelia, you the bomb. Just kidding. This would never happen. So that's basically what we're going to talk about. Okay, so I have a comment coming in. What if I had an employee go through the entire hiring process, screening, drug test, background, yet she didn't show up on her first day? I have no idea. That could just, I can't even begin to imagine. I'm at a blank. I mean, look, it happens. You can do everything right, and then there's still some, like those rare cases. Asking the right questions, getting a really good taste of the personality. I wonder if, do you tap into reliability? Also, do you do reference checks very well? And we'll talk about that actually very, very soon. Or it could just be one of those cases that is like, oh man, forgive my French, everybody, just SOL. I have to be honest. Been there, done that. And I've also asked myself, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay, so that's what predictor and criterion variables are. The before and the after. Does everybody feel a little bit better about that before I erase this and go on? Because you need to grip this really well for what we're going to do next. Anybody have any questions? And anybody who is thinking, I really have absolutely no idea what the difference is. Why are you asking me to define it? Do you feel better now? Okay, good. Don't feel obligated to say yes. I'll do whatever you need. Oh, good, Tess. Good. Okay, super. Okay. I'm going to erase this. We shall continue. Well, we come back with operational definitions, that being testing procedures. Before we go and subject Amelia, as my example, sorry, glutton for punishment, to any of this, we should probably test it out. So yes, like trial and error, like what was said before. Now, I'm actually going to put a pin, I hope you don't mind, in the first two, predictive and validity concurrent. Predictive validity and concurrent validity, because this is actually best defined on my next slide. So if you don't mind, we'll pause on that, okay? Let's just jump immediately to content validity. So this is funny, and I think, Bobby, you had mentioned this, and I said, oh, we're going to get to that, and here it is. We like to give people, yes, the benefit of the doubt, but the truth is, when we ask people to prove themselves, and that's really what this whole recruiting process is all about. However it is we ask them to prove themselves, we are going to do what maybe our parents told us not to do when we were kids. We are going to judge a book by its cover. But that's what that whole audition process is all about. And that is, in other words, content validity. So sure, allow a little bit of gaps for nerves and give people the benefit of the doubt, but for the most part, what you see is what you get. And if it's not, then I don't know, but that's all that we have to go on. Now, content validity, kind of to the expression that I said that maybe, you were raised, I know I was raised believing, but you know how you were taught, maybe, don't judge a book by its cover? Well, books are made up of contents. So that's another way to remember this. But that old expression also comes back to, don't judge somebody from face value. There's so much more deeper inside. True. Content validity is also known as face validity. So just to help you kind of make emotional connections, that might help. Contents are in a book. Mom said, don't judge a book by its cover. In other words, don't just look at somebody's face and then, judge them. But yet, now I'm telling you, go against that rule and do it. Face validity. In any event, so what face validity basically tells us is that, well, yes, the way in which one performs is the way in which we are going to measure how they, will perform for us. Take, for example, let's say you're hiring for a position that is a little bit more maybe administrative, and there's a lot of data integrity or let's say typing involved. And so in a pre-employment test, a job sample test, in other words, we ask the candidates to, I don't know, do a quick little like computer exercise where speed and efficiency is absolutely critical. Let's say, for example, one candidate who we thought was a really, really strong contender is actually not able to type with efficiency very, very quickly. Now, sure, Hawthorne effect, right? People get nervous, so maybe they underperform, and so we allow for a little bit of, variance, again, giving the benefit of the doubt. But we also have to judge people based on what they're giving us during this audition, that job sample test. This is a very, very, I would say, valid measure. So should, for example, there ever be an allegation of discrimination and the EEOC is going to investigate, they're going to say, but look, you didn't do well in the audition. And that's why people audition. Give me the contents, give me your chops. And that's what I'm going to judge you on. Oh yeah, good, Amelia. The next one, as we see on the list, is construct validity. Construct validity. Now, for fun, I'm going to add the letters I-O-N to the end. Construction. What this actually says is sometimes we have to understand that the instrument, the tool that we're relying on may be poorly constructed. And sometimes it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, hence the validity check. Now, construct validity is really actually always going to rely on the psychological component. So let me give you an example. Again, my real life example. A gajillion years ago, when I was trying to branch away from the Gap, I just wanted to explore more opportunities. I had applied for Club Monaco before they were bought by Polo Ralph Lauren. Not sure if you guys are familiar with the retailer, but anyhow, one of their competitors. I applied for, I think it was like a regional retail manager. Anyways, whatever, step up, really, really exciting opportunity. I was the shoe-in, I was told, job's yours. But I need you, I was told, to take an honesty and integrity test. So here I'm thinking, done. I am honest. I don't even take those like free magazines with the recipes from the grocery store. I've worked at a bank. I've never been a threat. I know I'm not. So no problem. Job's pretty much mine. I already started to think, what am I going to buy with my discount? That's a psychological test, the honesty and integrity test. I failed it. I was shocked. The manager, the district manager who I guess was, processing the test and really, putting me through the process was shocked as well. And she was saying, look, this is just a technicality, but what? So she actually gave me the test again, retest. And so 4 days later, I did the exact same test again. And I failed it. And so she said, look, I can't hire you. I was like, are you kidding me? Okay, it is what it is. What can I do? And she said to me, maybe it was just to make me feel better, but her parting words were something along the lines of, for what it's worth, here it is. And here I was going to answer your question, Bobby. I don't think that this test actually measured your honesty and integrity. So however, I guess the psychologists behind creating the questions that we see on pre-employment tests, however they measure, sometimes you do those aptitude tests or this personality tests, and it's like, these are weird questions, but like the answer tells, I guess, the test designers something about us that maybe we don't know about us. Apparently, she said, I don't think that this honesty and integrity test really measured one's honesty and integrity. So actually, it was constructed incorrectly. But for that reason, I guess, I had failed it. So that's why I like to say the construction. If you're going to take, for example, an honesty and integrity test, but all those questions really ask you about is, let's say, your knowledge on, I don't know, shrinkage, or your knowledge on customer service. It may not be measuring the target at hand. I know, right? And then last but not least, we have synthetic validity. So this is actually called synthetic because it's not genuine. Think about synthetic materials. I think of pleather, plastic leather. Wants to be leather, it's not real leather, it's synthetic. The reason why this is synthetic is because it takes small groups, about like 12 to 15 people, and only measures on aptitudes. So it's not a true reflection. It's like a small little dosage. Let's see, then why do they issue those tests then? Why do they issue those tests then construction? So here's the thing though, I'm suspecting, either maybe she just said that to me to lessen the blow to my ego. In that case, it was very nice. Let's pretend it was genuine. Maybe I was just one of the guinea pigs for them to realize, oh my gosh, look, we missed out on what could have been, possibly a good candidate because the test was constructed poorly or it's not valid. I know, and they'll never know. Okay, so is everybody okay so far with the 3 that I went through? And then on the next slide, we're going to go through the top 2. Questions, thoughts? You guys okay? You good? Okay, fantastic. Does probation period fall under any of these validity areas? Yes, because, and that's a good question. Let's see that. You want more? Let's see that actually on the next slide, because we're going to take a look at on-the-job performance. So when somebody is on the job and we're assessing their performance, they may very well as be, of course, during their probationary period. So yes, in part, yes. But now it's not imperative. Like we don't need them on probation. We don't need them off of probation in terms of validating, if you will, our selection process. Okay. Super. Now, keep one thing in mind, please, because remember, I have an IOU from the last lesson. That being, I promised you I would tell you more about criterion-related validity. Remember that? Criterion-related validity is a blend between what we're about to talk about, predictive and concurrent. I'm being asked, sorry, what is synthetic validity? Synthetic validity is small groups of about 12 to 15 people that are going through a series of aptitude tests. So it's just focused on aptitude, and it's just a very small sample of subjects. Okay, let's do this. What you see before you, and 2 you have on page 111, is predictive and concurrent validity. Predictive validity is also known as the follow-up method, and I'll explain why. Take your typical situation where you have an applicant or a series of applicants. They go through the application process, during which time we collect all that predictor data, right? All that information that we collect, basically saying, prove to me why I should hire you. We make our decision. So we hire our new incumbent. We put them through onboarding, orientation, fun time had by all. Then that incumbent is on the job, probably during probation. While they're on the job, we get to assess, are they any good? And basically we look back and we say, this was an amazing decision. Or we look back and go, oh dear God, how could I have been so oblivious? How did I not see this? Big, big, big bad decision. I need to correct this. So the reason why this is called predictive validity is because during the recruiting process, we predict, right, if this is going to be a strong candidate, but we won't know until we follow up when they're actually on the job. Pretty typical, right? And we just hope that if we made a mistake, we learn from that mistake and we don't repeat it again with another, candidate and hiring opportunity. Let's go to concurrent validity. Now, I have to admit, I'm not ashamed, but I'm not so proud. For a fair amount of time, I didn't really understand why this was called concurrent validity. And I had to go into a thesaurus and actually just type in the word concurrent to understand why this is called what it is. And even just having that understanding might give you the upper hand in an exam in case you should forget. Why is this called concurrent? So let me actually pick your brains in case you're thinking, oh yeah, she brings up a good point. What does concurrent mean? If you could be like a walking thesaurus, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Perfect. At the same time. Two things running parallel, in tangent, what have you. Thank you. So basically, we're doing two things at the same time. This is the ironic thing. You're collecting predictor data from applicants while at the same time, you're assessing the performance of your current employees. That makes no sense. Let me give you a real life example. A couple of years ago, I remember our CEO, our boss, what have you, the founder, big, top lady, she had said, okay, guys, we need to hire another graphic designer. Okay, what are you looking for? We asked her. She said, I don't know. I want him. She points to the graphic designer that we currently had on our team. His name is Jason. She said, you go and find that person. You go and hire that person. I want a cloned version of Jason. Okay. So we assessed and asked, where did you go to school? What was your specialty? Maybe, what was your experience? What kind of programs and or, computers do you use? Like, what do we need to know? And please tell me everything about you. What's your shoe size? If I was set out to go and clone him, then I collected all the information, knowledge, skills, abilities, schooling, work experience, everything to go and find his long lost twin. And I used all of that information, i.e. criteria, in screening and ultimately selecting our next graphic designer. Those are the two things that you do at the same time. So basically, that perfect employee is like the Ayatollah, is the benchmark by which any other candidate needs to be compared to. And for that reason, this method is called the present employee method. You examine your present employees. Who do you want to replicate? Go and find that replica. Does that make sense? Does that sit well? Just wait to see any comments, because this one can tend to be a little bit unnecessarily confusing in my opinion. How does that sit with everybody? Sort of? Okay. So to kind of fill in, maybe like to change that sort of into a, oh yeah, I want you to think about, please, somebody in your life, personally or professionally, that you really want another version of. They're amazing. Their performance is amazing. Their reliability is amazing. Their attitude is amazing. Their output is amazing. Just like everything about them is amazing. Oh my God, you're like, Illy, I don't deserve that. Thank you. Think about that person. Now imagine you were tasked with needing to go and hire somebody just like them. You may be thinking, okay, well, hold on. If I want another person just like them, then let me learn about them. Where did you go to school? What experience actually brought you to where you are today? How is it that you do what you do oh so well? Like imagine you need to hire, I don't know, another culinary chef. Yeah, well then you know what, if you schooled in Paris, I'm only taking a look at candidates who schooled in Paris. And that's kind of like, that's exactly what it means. But those are the two things you're doing at the same time. You are taking a look at who you want to clone, like that perfect employee, and learning everything about them and how they got to where they are and what contributed to it. And that's what you'll be looking for in a candidate. You're too kind. I'm being asked, can you go over predictive validity again? I'm a little confused. Sure. So predictive validity, let me just erase this so I can kind of clean that up. Predictive validity, if I may, is kind of like your typical process where, imagine this, boy or girl sees job application. boy or girl applies. And this is where you, maybe the recruiter, will collect all of the predictor data, your resume, your notes from the pre-screen, your online application blank, your notes from the first interview, the pre-employment test, the notes from the second interview, I don't know, the job sample test, the criminal background check. Like, you get all of that information from all of your applicants. Ultimately, you narrow it down to one, so you hire that person. And then that person performs on the job. Now, whenever the time is right, and whatever maybe the standard or the best practice is for the organization, you evaluate that new employee's performance. Is that new employee performing to A, company standard, B, to the level in which that they said they could during the application process, for which that's why you hired them, and C, to whatever benchmarks, that are deemed to be acceptable. And so you really assess their performance. So if it's a sales position, how much have they sold? Of course, you factor in, look, the training, the opportunity, cost, and so forth. I'll give you an example. Actually, I'm going to give you a best example. I'm embarrassed to admit. A couple of years ago, our program was growing, thank goodness, and so I needed to hire a couple of people. I did. A lot of people sold themselves on me during my application process. At that time, I would say it wasn't a very good process. I've now learned from my mistakes. I did not have anybody do a job sample test, admittedly. So based on experience and references, good conversations, I selected who I hired. Spent a lot of time and money training them and orienting them, and then away they go. They get their first lesson or their first group of people. I'll be honest, some of the customer emails were less than fantastic. I don't want to use the word complaint, but they were constructive. And I started to reschedule some of my lessons so I could sit in on that new instructor's performance. So I sat in on the lessons. Between the emails, the concerns, and my observations of the performance, I realized, oh my dear goodness, you're not strong, if you will, on virtual lessons, that being the technology. You're not strong in PowerPoint. You're not strong, I think, on thinking on your feet very quickly to drive examples and respond to people's needs. It's a little bit robotic. You're reading the facilitator notes that I created, which are just supposed to be guides for talking points. Never supposed to read. I don't ever want to hear anybody reading. And so when I saw their performance on the job, I realized that did not match what you sold me on what you could do. But I wouldn't have known that until I actually got to conduct that evaluation. So I predicted that they'd be great, but I realized they weren't until I followed up. Yeah, and that's pretty typical, I'll be honest with you, at least in my experience. Question, could you please go over inter-rater reliability? Yeah, absolutely. Inter-rater, not intra, inter-rater reliability is when you have multiple people observing, let's say, the same thing. So think about, for example, the last time that you went to go and see a movie with someone else or a group of people. Does that ring a bell? Like, I mean, not ring a bell, but like, is that something that you can kind of relate to? Perfect. Let's say you loved it. You were like, oh my God, want to see it again. Love it, can't wait till it comes on Netflix. It was funny. It was just like so entertaining. The 2 hours just flew by. Love. Well, maybe whomever it is that you went with is looking at you with one eyebrow cocked up thinking, really? My God, that was a snooze fest. There was nothing funny. That was the biggest waste of money. Never will I ever. And if anybody asks me, I'll deny that I saw it. So here you have, in my silly example, two observers. You watched literally the same show, but you have different key takeaways. You do not have reliability. You're not consistent. If you both loved it, you'd be consistent. You'd have reliability. So take, for example, now, in the world of recruiting, where let's say you have a panel interview. So the interviewers, the panel, let's say, consists of yourself, you're the HR manager, and perhaps the department manager from who you got the employee requisition from. You say, great candidate, ready to write up the papers, let's have them sign the employment contract. The line manager says, I don't want that person on my team. What do? That's an example of inter-rater no reliability. If you both fall in love with the candidate and you both agree, write up the papers, reliability. Perfect. Okay, so, and I'm not terribly disappointed because I think we were incredibly productive. I'm partially disappointed, but my fault. Anyhow, not too worried. We're going to stop because, first of all, I've already kept you on over, and I am still, I think, sufficiently away from wrapping up this unit. The rest, I think, is friendly to ingest independently. So, so please go ahead, finish the unit, take it in. We will resume on Monday. We, as well, on Monday, I have to assess what I'm going to give you as a reading assignment, so bear with me and please keep your nose in the buzz. We are going to dive into Unit 3. I want to say at least the first section at minimum, but I want to kind of, truthfully, I want to do a little trial with myself and see how much I can get done and how much time. Now, so anyhow, rest of Unit 2, most definitely, and I'm sorry, but I think that this was time well spent. This is going to appear as the third heaviest weight in anybody's exam, so this is too important, and I've seen this show up especially in a PHR exam before, a little bit in a CP, I'll be honest, so I really wanted to tackle this. On one hand, not that I'm trying to rush anybody, but I have a meeting with somebody else in 8 minutes, but on the other hand, I do have a couple of comments that have been waiting for me. So, reading assignment is rest of Unit 2, take your practice tests, and a little bit of Unit 3, precise page range to be confirmed, and thanks for your patience. Would you send me the answers to the recruiting yield ratios for problem number 1? No. Yeah, I could. I was going to post it actually on Monday, but if you want it sooner, do me a favor. If you don't mind, just if you could kind of be my schooling disciplinarian, either drop me an email or tag me to something like in the Buzz, in the Hive, and yeah, I'll send that to you. I'll make a note of this to myself as well, but I'm slightly losing my mind. But okay, hold on. So Christina, yep. Sorry guys, that's me thinking out loud. Yeah. Okay. Done and done. Now, let me scroll all the way up to the very, 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 very top. When we first started, there was something I wanted to read. I'm going to go radio silent for a moment. I want to read a comment. And Bobby, you had posted this. You opened it up to everybody, so don't feel bad, I guess, kind of pointing fingers. But I'm just going to read this. Oi. Oh. Okay. So it looks like we have somebody here who, okay, here's the thing. I'm thinking out loud here. Sorry. Oh my God, I just got the weirdest shiver like in my back. Oh, that poor man. I'm going through this. Hold on, let me think this out loud. This individual, if they are on any type of short-term medical leave, that's one thing to consider. I don't know what their benefits cover though. If this individual now as well cannot perform the job because of the surgery and this amputation, it might fall under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I say might, only because, again, level of employment, being like how many employees are there, but is this in fact a classified, and I'm using my air quotes, a medically classified, physician classified disability? But I think you're probably thinking about the ADA. Oy. That frightens me to goodness. Yeah, I think it's the ADA. Oh, my absolute pleasure. Amelia, thank you for being, if I may, like my little, my model for the evening. I'm sorry. I hope you were thinking, what? Thank you. Alrighty, guys. And Bobby, thanks for your patience. I guess something that I answered, and I hope well, that's still questionable, but something that I answered out so quickly, you waited like nearly an hour and a half, so appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, my absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you. I'm sorry to be rushing you, but I have a meeting with one of my team members to actually go and give them some coaching. So I'm so sorry about that, and I'm sorry we didn't quite meet our goal, but yet we did. So time very well spent. That being said, guys, have yourselves a fantastic weekend. Make it a productive one. And if you need anything, don't hesitate. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the night.